first.
Thank you. But not junior in wisdom. Thank you, Senator Warnock. Senator Toomey's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Holtz-Eakin, let me follow up on a point that you made. And actually, I think that Ms. Bailey touched on this point, which is that in recent years, we actually have seen a big surge in supply. And is that, does the data suggest that that is true about both single-family and multifamily housing?
Correct.
Yeah. So it seems to me that, especially given in light of that fact, and when you look at the prices across the whole economy, I mean, a lot of the price escalation is probably a reflection of the general inflationary environment we're in.
Correct.
Does that make sense? Right?
Yes.
And as you point out, the Fed made it a particularly egregious error in my mind by choosing to allocate credit in the mortgage space, where there was no problem. It's not as though the mortgage market wasn't functioning. And for months and months and months, arguably over a year after we were well past the crisis, they kept pumping money into subsidizing mortgages, which lowered the rate of mortgages relative to where they would otherwise be, at a time when the housing market was clearly overheating, as the economy was generally. But it certainly seems as though we still need more supply. And you touched on a few of the factors that seem to be contributing to higher costs and holding back supply, material costs, which I mentioned.
Agreed.
Permitting and land use, which in some cases restricts the ability to build new homes, a labor shortage. Could you elaborate at all on, what's holding back the supply that the market seems to be looking for?
I don't think any single one of those issues stands out as the key. It's the combination. There are just too many impediments to finding suitable land, building the density necessary. If you've got an urban area and you need to produce affordable rental units, and finding the workers to do it. And those problems exist across the economy.
Right, and they don't go away with the wave of a wand.
No.
So we've gotten a kind of a surge in supply, but it's probably not realistic to think we're going to have this massive boom. I just want to ask.
Can I emphasize one thing?
Go ahead.
I mean, people love to solve this problem quickly. That would be great, but to solve it quickly requires an enormous residential construction boom, which is exactly the wrong thing for the economy right now. So, thinking short-term fixes is not the solution. You have to put in place a long-term strategy.
So the other thing that I'm concerned about is further demand-side subsidy is going to make the pricing problem worse.
Agreed.
I think of the analogy that comes to mind is what we've seen in higher education for years. With all good intentions, there's all kinds of federal programs that have subsidized higher education. And what have we seen? Skyrocketing costs in higher education. Long before inflation occurred generally in the economy, it was happening there because the federal government just kept throwing money at it. And yet we see all these proposals for further demand-side subsidies. Recently, your fellow witness, Mr. Yun, was quoted as saying a proposal for down payment assistance featured in the Democrats' Build Back Better plan would, and I quote, add demand on top of already strong demand, so you will push up housing prices even further, end quote. He also stated that, quote, that's a gain for current homeowners, not home buyers, end quote. And I wonder if you agree with that assessment. Is that a big part of the net effect of these further demand-side subsidies?
Yes, I completely agree, and this is a common strategy in federal policy where there's a high price, and rather than dealing with the supply problem, you subsidize demand further and make your problem harder.
And then with respect to the FHFA, we've seen this new requirement that the GSEs submit this equitable housing finance plan, which is meant to promote housing equity. The plan, as I understand it, proposes subsidizing down payments and other mortgage costs, such as appraisals and title insurance, on the basis of race. So this seems to be a mechanism that is likely to contribute to inflation, but it's also a very disturbing exercise of social engineering on the part of unelected folks over at FHFA. First of all, do you see that whole mechanism as consistent with FHFA's statutory obligation for their conservatorship to require to return the GSEs to sound and solvent condition and preserve and conserve their assets. Is this really supposed to be part of their mission?
No, it's not. And after 14 years, they're still not adequately capitalized, and they're now expanding the credit box in many ways, and they will, as a result, be at greater risk of losses. And that's exactly the wrong direction for the FHFA to take them.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Toomey. Senator Tester from Montana is recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I don't think Montana's